Welcome to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And good day to you. Thank you for joining us. I am so pleased to get to come to you with great news today about what's happening in our community. Our purpose on this show is to help you when the headlines hit home. If God expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it in His Word. And so we tackle the tough topics of the day, and we often tackle those things that you don't hear in the mainstream media. In fact, I'll be honest with you up front. We are pre-taping today. I am headed to Cleveland, Ohio for the Republican National Committee meetings. I serve as the committee woman for Iowa. That's a great honor for me to do that and represent Iowans at the national level, and also then to work to communicate from the national level here for Iowans. But and one of the reasons I do that is to make sure that the Republican Party continues on its path of those principles that made the Republic strong. And there's only one party right now doing that, one major party. There are other parties popping up. But the Democrats, if you remember, sold out years ago when they couldn't decide whether or not to let God remain in their platform. 3 different votes. Now, we may not always get along in the Republican Party, and they're certainly not perfect. Every politician and every candidate we have in the Republican Party, I'm not perfect. But right now, it is the best way to preserve this nation. And so I invite you to get involved, however you are inclined, to uphold biblical principles. And I get feedback as well on Facebook, on Twitter, sometimes not so polite, to keep my religion out of your politics, to keep my God out of your government. And then I have to politely explain to folks to go and read your Mayflower Compact, the first document ever written before they stepped on the shores to start what would be the colonies, which would then be our country. And of course, then you have the Declaration of Independence, which mentions our God, our supreme judge, our providence, our creator. They recognize the God, not just any God, the God, the one true God. So we were definitely founded on Judeo-Christian values, and you wouldn't have your government without my God. It's as simple as that. So I'm not pushing my God on you. As a patriot, I'm standing on the government that was founded on the one true God. And as George Washington said, it's impossible to rightly govern without God. And so God in the Bible, actually, he said. And I get confused, was it Jefferson or one of the others that said, our Constitution is for a holy or moral and righteous people. And I think you have people telling you that the Constitution is now outdated. Not true. Not true. It's that we're not paying attention to it. And it's us that we've lost so much morality. We no longer have that basis on which to make good decisions. So, just a little, I guess, I don't know where that came from, but somebody out there probably needed to hear that today, as well as I needed to reaffirm that myself. And so when I make these comments, and I hear from folks, I just, there's so much going on. Because I'm headed to RNC, I wanted to explain that to you. I'm not being partisan. I'm just explaining why I'm involved, where I'm involved, and what motivates me. And hopefully something as noble motivates you in your politics. But because of that, I'm going to read you some of the headlines. This is Monday that we're taping this show. And so some of the headlines are so frustrating to me. I get my news often at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm up doing things, but also I like it because they haven't gotten time to, what's the word I want to use? Taint the news, adulterate it, edit it. And so I heard about the explosions in the 2 churches in New Mexico before they had a chance to pepper it, dismiss it, and refuse to talk about it. Heard nothing about it the next morning on the news. 2 different churches 4 miles apart in New Mexico had explosions on Sunday, August 2nd. We're not hearing about it. The police officer that was shot by a black man, a white police officer, shot by a black man in Memphis, Tennessee. They had the mayor's comments on, and what he was saying was there are too many guns in the hands of the wrong people. He wasn't promoting gun control from what I could tell. But by morning, they had changed that, no longer showing his words. They were saying it for him and leaning towards a more gun control or a policy that would sound like he was pushing more gun control. Was not the deal. It was a drug deal gone bad. It was simply over marijuana. And someone shot this family man dead. Now, You wait and see. Someone's going to tell us, well, see, marijuana should just be legalized, and that wouldn't have happened. That's not the case either. And sitting with me, actually, is a former law enforcement officer. Dr. Stephen Kirby's no stranger to the show. We're so pleased that you'll come. You are a resident expert right here in Iowa on Islam.
Well, thanks, Tamara. It's always great to be on your program.
And so we're always so grateful when you can join us. And during the school year, you've got a Bible study at the same time we go live each Wednesday. So when we pre-tape like this, it's so fun to snag you and say, hey, now you can come join me.
Well, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to be on your program.
Thank you. And so for those of you who are listening, Stephen Kirby, Stephen Kirby, and Dr. Kirby, the website?
Actually, you can go to my website, islamseries.org. It's islamseries.org, and that's where I've got articles and especially brochures on Islam. The brochures are handy because if you don't have time to read a book, you can sit down and read a brochure in about 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
I've got about 20 brochures at the site. You can download them, save them to your computer, but each one deals with a different aspect of Islam, and you can read it over and get comfortable in that particular knowledge about Islam and really start educating yourself about Islam.
You could be a pocket professor. With that brochure in your pocket, take time to read it during your coffee break at work. If you're riding a bus, if you're, wherever you're at, you can get great knowledge from those little brochures that then I'm assuming have links and sources for more depth information.
Yeah, actually, each brochure's got basically sources on it where the information came from. But they're the front and back of one page of trifold format, so it makes it real convenient for people. You can print it out and fold it up, keep it in your pocket, or leave it at the doctor's office when you go to the doctor.
Excellent. Now I have to ask you, and I'm just going to ask you right on air. If anybody knows me, they know I'm pretty upfront and honest wherever I'm at. And an attorney will tell you, never ask the question you don't know the answer to in public, but never stops me. Can I just order all those brochures from you? I would just like a copy of all of them. Is there a price that I can give you and just get the whole library so that I have it for myself?
Yeah, the price is free. They're at that website. All you have to do is there's a page at that website that says brochures. Just go to that page. You've got, I think, the 20 brochures listed there. Just click on it, open it up. They're in a PDF file format. So like I say, you can print it out. In fact, I've got instructions on how to print it out as a brochure to make it easy. And you print out as many as you want, save them on your computer, email them as attachments if they're completely free, because it's more important that we get information out about Islam than to try to throw any price on these brochures.
What a great heart. That's a servant's heart. This is a man with a doctorate. Is it in poli-sci and foreign studies?
It's foreign affairs.
Foreign affairs. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your expensive gained knowledge for free with the rest of us. So folks, right here, we're only 8 minutes in. This is a new record for a challenge to you. Go to that website. Give us the website again.
It's islamseries.org. That's ISLAMSERIES, all flowing together, .org.
So there's no excuse now for you not to have information out there. If you're in a church and they haven't taught about Islam, they need to be, and here's a great way for them to start. And I think you should print off some of those brochures. Is there a particular brochure that would be good for people to take to their pastors?
Yeah, actually, I think there's about 4 of them on there that talk about, I know one, I've got what the Quran says about Christians and Jews. Another one is what what Muhammad said about Christians and Jews. And in fact, an interesting brochure for a lot of Christians would be the one dealing with Christ was not crucified. Because according to Islamic doctrine, actually the Quran flat out says Christ was not crucified. It just appeared that it was so. And to spoil the ending on that, Islam teaches that Christ was taken up bodily by Allah, and one of Christ's disciples was made to look like Christ. And then when the Jews came crashing into the house, they grabbed that disciple who looked like Christ and crucified him instead. And the significance of that is, as I've told people before, Islam teaches that Christianity is a false religion based on a fraud, because Christ's other disciples were in the house, so they knew Christ was taken up and that it was an impostor that was crucified, but yet they went out and preached Christianity. So if it was an impostor that was crucified, then there was no resurrection.
Right.
So the whole idea of Christianity then crumbles because Islam teaches that Christ was not crucified. Therefore, Islam teaches that Christianity is a false religion based on a fraud, known to be a fraud by the disciples who preached it.
And isn't it Paul in the Word that says, if there is no resurrection, we are in vain?
Right. So, I think it was Paul.
And I don't know if you have a brochure that talks about this. Bill Feder, you've done an event with Bill Feder.
Right.
Because we had Concerned Women for America. Was it 2009? We did the first Islam event.
Yes, sometime back.
Concerned Women for America is so good to tackle these topics beginning long before the media and many other organizations catch on, because we are a grassroots organization across the nation, much like ACT is, and people know what they hear, and we take action on it from that. But we did that series in 2009 with Bill Feder, and the screen that he had that compared Muhammad and Jesus was so amazing. Do you have any brochures that have any of that, where Muhammad would blind people, Jesus healed them and gave them their sight? Muhammad would cripple people, Jesus healed the lame and helped them walk. Muhammad said to die to kill others in his name. Jesus Christ died so that we all might have life.
Yeah, no, I don't have any brochures that do a comparison of the religions. My focus over the years has been strictly on Islam, because it seems like that's what people need to understand. First understand Islam, then they can make their own comparison. And
so let me ask you this. We hear, and we've talked, you and I have talked about the Why Islam billboard that's on Fleur Drive.
Yeah.
Just on the south side of the bridge as you're heading southbound, you see it to the right of the road.
Yeah, it's over by Gray's Lake.
And it says whyislam.org. It says that Muhammad believed in peace, women's rights, and social justice, which I howl at all three of those. If you know the Quran at all, it's just not possibly true. You and I were talking about this on another network. There's this new move to Americanize Islam, to give it our terms, to desensitize us to the things that we know to be true about the terror and the hate for others, the intolerance. And they are trying to blend, I think, that they are the same God. Do you have a comment on that?
Actually, I've got an article at that website under the articles page. And it says, I think the title is, Do We All Believe in the Same God? And I address that issue of Jews, Christians, and Muslims all believing in the same God. And the bottom line is, for Jews and Christians to believe in the God of Islam requires Jews and Christians to believe in a God that curses them, condemns them to hell because they're not Muslims, and commands Muslims to fight them because they're not Muslims. So it's really theological nonsense based on ignorance to say that Christians, Jews, and Muslims all believe in the same God.
Absolutely. And so, folks, it doesn't have to be so intimidating. We were at the State House when you heard the ruckus about the Wiccan praying at the State House last session, but you heard nothing about the imam praying the day before. Didn't even make a blip on any of the news stations that I know of. I was there that day. I think you were there that day, weren't you?
Actually, no, I wasn't.
You weren't?
I wasn't there the day the imam did the prayer, but I wrote about it afterwards.
Okay, because they had tables set up around the rotunda, and they were evangelizing.
Yeah, in fact, I did get up there. It's Muslim Recognition Day, and was able to talk to one or two of the Muslims there, but I just took kind of a passive approach, just asking them what they could tell me. I was more curious to hear what they had to say and pick up brochures than to really try to engage in a debate that day.
You're wiser than I. I engaged in a debate, and she asked me to leave her table. She didn't like my smile. She thought I was not peaceful. I was the one smiling. She was one angry, but yeah, it's amazing how they turn things. I haven't given up, and I'll pray that God give me another chance to peacefully build a relationship, not just to combat, but to peacefully build a relationship. So we need to come to our next break here, and I need to thank Webcast One Studios. This studio is absolutely gorgeous, and not just to thank my sponsors, but because I am thankful for their allowing me to bring you the truth each week. There's so much ahead of us. There's so much we're dealing with in the news and the headlines. And I am thankful to Webcast One Live and to Crave, Christians Reviving American Values Every Day, ChristiansForAmerica.com. ChristiansForAmerica.com, webcast1live.com. If you'd like to join us as a partner as well, we'd like to talk to you about that. We'll be right back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back if you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thank you for staying tuned with us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time. If you want to watch the show, you can always join us. Well, most often. Today's an exception. Most often, Wednesday, 10 a.m. live. We do the show out of Webcast One Studio, so you can join us on webcast1live.com. Webcast1live.com. You can join in with phone calls. You can join in on the chat line. You will appreciate the discussion. You can watch it online. It's video besides audio. Other than that, we're at 99.3 on the Truth Network. We're very pleased and honored that the Truth Network is carrying the show at noon on Sundays. How powerful. We have high noon on Sundays. On the Sabbath, we've got the truth at the high point of the day. And so I'm thankful that they're showing it on airing it at 99.3. So if you hear something, you can tell your friends to listen at that time, or you can go to tamarascott.com. We try and get the archives up there for you. Also, the links, anything we're talking about, I will get to Truth for Our Time Facebook page. We'll get the links up on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page. My role is to get information to you. What you do with it is then your business. I'm responsible for my action. You're responsible for your reaction or your inaction. Not just to me, but someday to God. And there's so much happening in our news right now, and it's easy to be a little discouraged with everything coming at us. A couple of things. We'll know by the time this airs how the vote went today on defunding Planned Parenthood. But I just find it astonishing that the man who killed Cecil is having his professional business peppered with protesters. And the woman named Cecile, whose profession is to murder millions, is hearing little. There's nothing about her in the news, relatively nothing. If it weren't for Fox News, and then Greg Stephanopoulos did it one morning on, is that his name, Greg?
George
did it on Sunday morning, but it was brief, and it's certainly not what it should be. It's certainly not the information it should be. All of this harumphing. And honestly, yes, it's a tragedy that we lost such a majestic animal. But as Katie Pavliks was telling Greg Gutfield on his show, and Zimbabwe admits this, they're now hurting because the hunting's slowing down. It is the hunting programs that fund the reserves, the animal endangered programs, provides jobs for people there. They're now hurting because it is the hunting industry. Hunters love animals. They appreciate the need to regulate. And now that we're looking for a second American who apparently also shot a lion in somewhat of a protected area, tells me that maybe they need to review or do something different in those areas. Maybe it's not marked as well as it should be. Maybe there's something else amiss here. Before we just make these people the most hated men on earth, and that's what they're being labeled, the most hated man in the world, and yet Cecile Richards, who knowingly, purposely orchestrates the murder of millions every day in this country. We're hearing little. We're hearing little. Planned Parenthood is a black spot on the heart of America. We ought to be talking about this. And to show you the hypocrisy of the left as well on this, think about this. There was a snake. Do you have that photo, Ryan? Do you have that link of the snake out of Missouri, Warren County, Missouri? 14-foot python. There it is on your screen for those of you who are watching live with us. 14-foot, almost 15-foot, 160-pound Burmese python found wandering around outside in the timber area of Missouri. 3-year-old found it. Aren't we lucky the 3-year-old found it and told mom before it found the 3-year-old? Think that through. They killed the snake, skinned it, sewed the knife. Couldn't be any more barbaric, right, when they're doing this. And people cheered, including the newscasters, cheered that they had killed this snake. Why? Because it's a predator. If this animal, Cecil, weren't collared and corralled, it too would be a predator. So as tragic as this is, that someone may not have followed the rules, that there may have been a mix-up, I don't know, and you don't know either. That's just it. We only know what we're hearing. There's been no trial. We don't know. Tragic as that is, the hypocrisy of the left is not upset about the Burmese python, who was somebody's pet. The other one was collared and tagged. This was somebody's pet too at one time. But everybody knows the danger here, and it's apparently politically correct, still not like snakes, which is actually biblical. Don't tell the left, because they'll have a hard time with that. Because they don't want to do anything biblical, they'll have to like snakes and embrace them now, right? So I just want to show you, you have to think these things through. It's not always as simple and easy as what you see, especially in the mainstream media. So Dr. Stephen Kirby is my guest today, and I'm going to show you a couple of his books. The first one you may not see. Did I give that to you, Ryan? Did I pass that one in there to you? Islam, I don't have it here anymore. The green one is called
Islam and Barack Hussein Obama.
Oh, good job.
Oh, there we go.
Sir Ryan, our producer, just does a tremendous job in there behind the glass. Islam and Barack Hussein Obama was the first book, and it was after his speech in Cairo, Egypt. Yeah,
and to clear up misnomers, the title of this book has has caused some headaches. It is not a diatribe against President Obama by any means. What I did was, the bulk of the book is devoted to looking at certain aspects of his speech in Cairo, Egypt, in June of 2009, and showing how what he said is not really accurate according to authoritative Islamic sources. And then I've got an epilogue of the book that addresses the shooting of the 2 Army privates in Little Rock, Arkansas, a couple of days before President Obama's speech, and the relative indifference and lack of response of the Obama administration to the shooting of these 2 Army privates, which also appeared in the media for a day or two and then went by the wayside because they were gunned down by a Muslim convert.
And didn't he not make a comment for the longest time?
Actually, there was about a 2.5-day period. There was no comment from the White House on the gunning down of those privates. And finally, they released a statement And it was a local release to the Arkansas media, although it was available to any other media who wanted it. But the idea, 2 Army privates gunned down, 1 killed, 1 badly wounded by a Muslim convert. And it's ignored by the Obama administration. It happened on June 1st, 2009. And my speculation is that President Obama didn't want to make a big deal about it because on June 4th, 3 days later, he was given a speech in front of a Muslim audience in Cairo, Egypt. And if he had been really critical of a Muslim convert gunning down soldiers, which is completely supported by Islamic doctrine, perhaps his reception in the Muslim countries might not have been as gracious as it was.
And you're not coming out and attacking him, saying he's a Muslim or anything else. But if he is a Muslim, he's not even a good Muslim because, as you're pointing out, he's not accurate according to their own doctrine.
Well, actually, it's interesting. In the book, I point out, actually, according to Islamic doctrine, according to the teachings of Muhammad, President Obama is an apostate from Islam. His father was Muslim, although he became an apostate at some point too. But President Obama, in fact, Muhammad, said that the natural state for children is they're born as Muslims. It's their families who then decide whether they're going to become Jews or Christians. President Obama, I read both of his autobiographies before I wrote this book, he said that when he was growing up, his mother didn't value religion. It was just something a sociologist looked at. So he was raised as a Muslim for a number of years. He was born to a Muslim father, raised as a Muslim for a number of years. His parents never directed him away from Islam. So according to the teachings of Muhammad, President Obama grew up as a Muslim by default. Then around age 25 or 26 is when he walked down the aisle there at Jeremiah Wright's church and converted to Christianity or accepted Christianity. So,
which, by the way, he's not real good with that doctrine either. So
yeah, but anyway, according to Islamic doctrine, then President Obama is an apostate from Islam.
And what do they do with apostates?
Well, apostates, Muhammad said, kill them. And what's interesting, and I point this out in President Obama's speech in Cairo, Egypt, he was speaking in front of thousands of Muslim scholars who were quite aware of his background. And when President Obama talked about his background there, he said, I come from a family of Kenyans, a long family of Kenyans, among whom were some Muslims. Mm-hmm. Well, so he created this little, I guess you could say, a firewall between him and his Muslim relatives. Because had he said, well, my father was a Muslim, but he became an apostate, and I was born by default a Muslim and raised going to some Muslim schools, but at age 25 or 26, I converted to Christianity, he would have been telling his Muslim audience, oh, my father was an apostate, I'm an apostate. Mm-hmm. But he knew enough, or somebody writing his speech knew enough to fancy dance around that issue. But according to Islamic doctrine, President Obama is an apostate from Islam.
Which takes me back to the beginning of this show. I said I wasn't sure why I was mentioning it, and I love it how God weaves it through. God gives us free choice. In America, we have the freedom of religion, not freedom from religion like some people misinterpret, but you could worship God however you chose. Our founding fathers made it very clear for the majority of them that it was built on Judeo-Christian values. They gave God credit for the divine protection, for his providence, but what your church did in worship would not be in any way restricted by the government. That's what that First Amendment was about. Free will. God gives us free will. Allah does not. When we see theocracies in the Middle East, you see unstable governments, you see dictators, you see violence. That's not what we want here in America. That's not what we have in America. And that's not what Christianity is about in America as well. So I just want to make that clarity while we're talking about it. The other book I'm going to hold up right here is Letting Islam Be Islam. And again, Dr. Stephen Kirby is my guest. Letting Islam Be Islam, because you don't say what other people think. You go totally from the doctrine.
I go to the authoritative Islamic sources. I let Islam speak for itself.
Which comes to is this your third book?
Third book, right.
And they keep getting more beautiful. Islam, according to Muhammad, not your neighbor.
Right. And the title for that book came about because what you'd mentioned before in conversation about a lot of Muslim Americans have their own version of Islam, and it creates confusion. And the only true Islam is the Islam taught by Muhammad. So if we want to understand Islam, we have to go to what Muhammad said. We have to go to the Quran. We have to go to the authoritative Quran commentaries. instead of listening to your nice Muslim neighbor give their own personal version of Islam. So that's why I say Islam according to Muhammad, not your neighbor.
So we're going to have to go to break here in just a couple of short minutes. And when we come back, we're really going to get into the Iran deal, because this is a thing that's, I think what I would say, what probably our greatest threat as a nation right now. Would you say that's fair?
Easily.
And it's not just about protecting Israel. It's about preserving Israel, but it's about protecting the U.S. and the world from a nuclear arms race.
Exactly.
If we allow this deal to go through, Saudi Arabia is already looking towards building nuclear arms as well. It won't be that now. And if you think that Iran is not going to build a nuclear program or a nuclear weapon, think again. They've been doing it all along. So when we come back, can you address some of those things for some of those issues, what the Ayatollah was saying about America even while we were in negotiations with this process? Yeah,
so we've got a lot we can talk about on this.
All right. So Dr. Stephen Kirby is my guest on that Iran deal. Christians United for Israel. Christians United for Israel is now starting an action fund. And I am working with Gary Bauer right here in Iowa. If you want more information on that, you can email me at info@tamarascott.com, info@tamarascott.com. The family leader is also the one who is bringing that connection together. So the family leader, contact them and you can help me find me that way as well. But we need to get to our legislators, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Tell them no deal. No deal is better than a bad deal. Think that through. Walking down the aisle, getting married. Would you rather get married to a jerk, a creep who is going to hurt you, cannot trust, or stay single? We're better off staying out of this deal than a bad partner we can't trust. We'll be right back after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing. We have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do. What type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for staying tuned. You are listening to Tamara Scott Live. I'm here with Dr. Stephen Kirby as we bring you truth for your time, truth for our time, actually, and help you live God's Word in today's world. We're talking about the Iran-Islam deal. Well, it's actually just the Iran deal, but that's probably pretty accurate what I just said there.
Islamic Republic of Iran. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple things I'm going to come through, and then I'm just going to turn it over to Dr. Kirby just to roll with this. There's so many things you have to know. The first, I will get this link on there, and sometimes I don't get it done right away between busy schedules and computers that aren't real quick as well. I will try and get the link on there. It's on my personal Facebook page, and I think I have it on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page. The 7-minute Armed Forces hearing from last Wednesday, whatever date that was that July 28th or 29th? The 31st was Friday, 30th, 29th. July 29th, Armed Services, Senator Cotton did an excellent job in 7 minutes. He will reveal so much to you about this deal and lack of knowledge by our Secretary of State. He asked, first he had to fly to Vienna to even find out and affirm that there were secret deals. When is the last time we've ever in America, in the history of this country, had to fly to another country to figure out what's happening in our own? That is just so offensive to me. Secondly, he asked Senator Kerry, these secret agreements, have you read them? And you see Senator or Secretary of State Kerry fumbling with papers, refusing to look him in the eye. No, I've been briefed. He says, has anybody in your department read these? And Kerry could not confirm that anyone had read them. Perhaps Undersecretary Wendy Sherman had read them, but he couldn't even confirm that for sure. No one has read these except the Ayatollahs. The Ayatollahs know what's in them. And then when he asked about our interest, Kerry referred to the UN and the IEA. They are not our interest. They do not have our back. And it's frightening to me that our Secretary of State doesn't either. A couple of other things, and I've checked these out with congressional members. Dr. Kirby and I were in a luncheon with Senator Lindsey Graham, which I would have to say this is not an endorsement of a presidential candidate, but as a senator and as a former military person, I think he probably has the best understanding of this Iranian deal in the Middle East right now, along with, I think Jindal does as well, and Santorum was in the Senate and wrote some of these issues before others even knew about them. He was writing about the concerns with the Middle East. So we've got some great candidates. They all get the danger. But if you can get a chance to hear Senator Graham, I think people should. Let me come through these 2 points, and then I'm going to totally turn it over to you, Doctor.
Okay.
Okay, so on page 16, number 29 says the U.S. will refrain from any policy specifically intended to directly adversely affect normalization of trade or economic relations with Iran. What that's saying to you is we're lifting sanctions. The sanctions were working. They were slowing them down. They were stopping and crippling. Iran is the largest sponsor of terrorism across the globe. We've never asked them to stop it. We've never questioned them about it through this negotiation process, according to what I've been told. These sanctions will be lifted. That's going to free them up. Countries that were starting to break under the pressure will now not only have sanctions lifted through Iran, but that $150 billion will be coming back to them. $150 billion with a B. Think that through, folks. To a country that hates America, hates Israel, and cannot be trusted. And Doctor, do you know, was the Ayatollah talking about wiping out America or the great Satan, even while we were going through these negotiation processes?
Oh, yeah, you've had the chance, death to Israel, death to America. They've been going on for years now, even during the negotiations. But in fact, I think I remember reading a comment where John Kerry was saying that he was puzzled by these statements coming out of Iran about death to America and death to Israel.
It's like these folks want their name on a deal. They're working so hard to have their name in the paper of history books as working some foreign policy that they care nothing about. We may not have a future. They're so interested in having their names written in the history books that America may not have a future.
Well, it seems like that some folks are more concerned about a personal legacy than a legacy of the United States.
Their legacy will have quite a limp if this goes through. It's like trying to think that Burmese python that we just showed the photo of, 15 feet long, 160 pounds, like trying to make it a house pet and think it's going to get along with your cat and your dog.
Right.
It's just not going to happen no matter how hard you try. Page 142, number 10, nuclear security says that there will be cooperation in the form of training courses and workshops to strengthen Iran's ability to prevent, protect, and respond to nuclear security threats to nuclear facilities and to systems. Now think that through. That's not a threat that we're dealing with. That's that they're going to have a protection of their nuclear program. We are not just allowing them now to start a nuclear program. We're blessing it. We're protecting it. We're going to come in and protect that. And here it says, to respond to nuclear security threats, including sabotage. We will also cooperate to enable effective and sustainable nuclear security and physical security protection. Think that through. Because I've had folks out of Washington, D.C. tell me that Israel has probably been the one to kind of stop them from where they're at right now. If Israel should come against them in any way, likely in a retaliatory way or protective way for themselves in defense, we may find ourselves at odds with our only friend, our best friend, but our only stability in the Middle East.
Yeah, well, we would, according to the wording. And think back, a few years back, the Iranian nuclear program was set back by the computer bug, this, I think it was called Stuxnet, that was put into a lot of the computers involved in the Iranian nuclear program. And it caused all kinds of malfunctions and problems. And the speculation was that it was the Israelis, but also with the assistance of the United States. So what this part of this agreement is saying now, the United States will protect the Iranian computers from any type of virus to try to set back their program.
Folks, I hope you're listening. If you're in your cars, I hope you don't just hit the curb when you hear this. We are now saying we're going to protect Iran and their nuclear program.
Exactly. At the expense of Israel.
Our best friend, our ally, strongest ally, and the only stability in the Middle East.
And you know something? Israel is referred to by some Iranian officials as a one-bomb country. That means all it's going to take is one nuclear bomb and Israel's gone. But yet our focus is on protecting the Iranian nuclear program because they promise that they're not going to develop nuclear weapons, according to this agreement.
You've got about 2.5 minutes before our next break. I want you to run.
Okay. One of the issues, President Obama said that this deal is not built on trust, it is built on verification. And he talks about the inspectors will have access where necessary, when necessary. Absolutely wrong. It's along the lines of if you like your doctor, you can keep it. Back on July 21st, the Wall Street Journal did a great article. Iran inspections in 24 days, not even close, because in spite of what President Obama said, the administration later explained, well, according to the agreement, there could be up to a 24-hour day period, or 24 days before inspections could be allowed because of procedural issues. The Wall Street Journal looked at the whole agreement and said, no, actually, the way it's built, the Iranians could string this thing out for 3 months or more before you could even possibly get an inspector on the ground. So this whole idea that it's a verification is completely ridiculous. But what's scary about this is President Obama said the day this agreement was announced, he says, this deal is not built on trust. It is built on verification. The Wall Street Journal article, reading the agreement shows it can't be built on verification. How can you have verification when the Iranians can string this thing out for months, 3, 4, 5 months, or even actually prohibit inspectors from coming in? And in fact, Iranian officials said during the negotiations, there are military installations that will not be inspected, period.
And what you're referring to is if we have to, prove why we deserve to get an inspection, and if they change something, the whole process starts over again.
Exactly. There's committees that are set up, and there's negotiations back and forth, and you're right. If there's a disagreement or something new comes up, then the whole process starts over again.
We're right back to that clock. We've got to take another break. We'll be right back with more information. Dr. Stephen Kirby, you must call your legislators, 202-224-3121. Tell them no deal. Then email and call your friends, your family members, and tell them to call as well. No deal. We'll be right back after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for staying tuned with us on the last portion of this hour. We're talking with Dr. Stephen Kirby. We are talking to you about the Iran deal. This is not political. This is protective. This is nonpartisan. I don't care who your legislator is, Republican or Democrat, call them. From what I understand, most of the Republicans get this, but the Democrats are getting heavy pressure from their own president. All the more reason to call them. I have met with Congressman Loebsack and his legislative assistant, Ashley Schillenberg, very, very attentive to our concerns. The day this deal was signed, Christians United for Israel had 5,000 Christians already on the Hill with scheduled appointments to their U.S. senators and congressional members. There are no surprises on God's day planner. So rather than getting concerned and overwhelmed and worried, you need to understand God has a plan, but we need to be obedient and active ourselves. He's trusting you during this very difficult time in America's history and world history to counter the evil that is out there. And this deal is evil. It will not be in the best interest of America, Israel, or the world. Call your legislators, 202-224-3121. Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. Call them all. Even if you think they're good, call them, reinforce them, and thank them. All right, Dr. Kirby. This deal, we were talking at the break, and you mentioned something about this deal.
Well, I think it's important to understand who we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with Iran. We're dealing with the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that's a fundamental issue that people need to be aware of. Because you look at the Iranian Constitution, they keep talking about Islam. They talk about Sharia law. The army of Iran is a religious army. As they say, the religious mission of the Iranian army and the Revolutionary Guard is holy war, jihad, along the way of God in the struggle to extend the supremacy of God's law in the world. That's in their constitution. And extending God's law means Sharia law. The Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, Ayatollah means sign of God. So what we're dealing with here is a theocracy. They deeply believe in Islam, the religion, and the doctrines of Islam. And that's what's important to understand. The idea, like taking an oath. We think about going into court, raising our right hand, take an oath. Under Islam, the oath is subject to your interpretation. And even Muhammad said, I'll make an oath, but if I find a better deal, I'm going to break my oath and move forward. So it's like you go into court, raise your hand, say, yeah, I swear to tell the truth, whole truth. Your right hand's up, but your left hand's behind your back with your fingers crossed. This is what we're dealing with here in terms of the folks involved in this deal. And then, of course, the whole issue of taqiyya, deception.
Taqiyya, yes.
Taqiyya is rampant in Islam for varying reasons. But the bottom line is it exists whether people want to realize it or not. It is a part of Islamic doctrine, deception. You've got 2 verses in the Quran that allow Muslims to deceive non-Muslims. Chapter 3, verse 28, chapter 16, verse 106. They both allow Muslims to deceive non-Muslims as long as they stay true to Islam in their heart. So these are the kinds of folks we're dealing with who firmly believe in this Islamic doctrine, and we're going to trust them. And then you have to look at how Islam divides the world up. The world is divided between the House of Islam, Dar al-Islam, and the House of War, Dar al-Harb. The House of War is every place that is not Muslim, basically, not controlled by Islam. So what happens is they've already viewed the world, the Iranians already view this world as we live in the House of War. They are at war with us simply because we're not Muslim. And Muhammad said, there's no penalty for killing a non-Muslim. So you've got to keep this in mind from the Iranian point of view, from the mullah point of view, from the Islamic doctrine point of view. We can be killed with no penalty at all.
And when I go to D.C., I have all kinds of cab drivers, many of them Muslim, Pakistan, Iran, all over, Saudi Arabia, all over. And I immediately start conversing with them. And they will tell me that in the Muslim religion, you do not kill the innocent. The problem is we are not innocent.
That's it exactly. The terminology, who is innocent? The world is divided between the House of Islam and the House of War. If you're not a Muslim, you're not innocent. That's just the bottom line. But so keeping these in mind, deception, the division of the world, there's no surprise that they're chanting death to Israel, death to America, all the time these negotiations are going on. And something that your viewers, I'm sure, aren't aware of, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei just released a book.
Yes.
And the title of the book is Palestine. And he makes his position clear from the start. Israel has no right to exist as a state. He refers to Israel as a cancerous tumor. Now, this is the supreme leader of Iran. President Obama wants us to sign a treaty with this guy, and he releases a book saying death to Israel. He's right up front about this.
Before we've even voted. He's not even waiting till the vote has been cast.
They're up front. They've told us for years, but we refuse to listen. We refuse to accept that what they're saying is what they believe.
The Islamic people whose practice is to deceive until they have enough to take over is being more honest than we are.
They are. And it's unbelievable that we do not listen to what they tell us simply because it's too uncomfortable.
Right, because we don't want to be judgmental. We don't want to be caught thinking poorly of someone. We want to give them the best chance. We are the country of second chances. That's what's beautiful about us. But unless you have the freedoms in place and the protections in place, you will not be able to offer that to the world any longer.
Exactly. So this deal, it's a threat to the United States. It's really a threat to the world, and including some of the Muslim world, because as you said before, if this deal goes through, the Saudis will work with the Pakistans to get nuclear weapons. The Kuwaitis will work with the Pakistanis.
Starting.
So we will have a nuclear arms race in the Middle East thanks to this deal that Obama and Kerry are promoting.
That will be their legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Kerry, and kid yourself not, Hillary Clinton is part of this as well as former Secretary of State. She is part of this as well. And we're already out of time again. I so thank you, Dr. Stephen Kirby, for coming on. Dr. Stephen Kirby is my guest, islamseries.org.
Right.
You can get brochures there free of charge. You can find information there. He bases it all on their doctrine, not what somebody else says, so that you have the information in front of you. And he'll also have helps on there on the Quran and understanding how you can talk to those around you and tell the truth when they've got just enough of the truth that they say it wrong or don't have the whole truth. We've got to go. Call your legislators, 202-224-312, and I implore you, there is nothing more important other than serving God, there's nothing more important that you can do for your family, your country, than make that phone call and tell them to vote no deal. You've been empowered. Now be encouraged and never be complacent.